G'day guys, Mac with you at a circle, and in this episode of Getting Started in the Horus Heresy, the Death Guard. Wow, after the unmitigated disaster that was the Thousand Suns, awful video to make because they're just so badly written, the Death Guard are the polar opposite. I am pleased to say that this legion performs excellently. Their rules are clear, concise, well written. Nothing is overpowered, everything is viable in some capacity, and therefore it is a pleasure to actually go through. So let's start with their basic rules. Remorseless. This is a buff that's not going to affect your cavalry, it's not going to affect your artillery, but it's going to affect everyone else, and that is you ignore movement penalty modifiers for normal movements. So, difficult terrain, for example, or being pinned, things like that. You're ignoring the effects of it. Now, this won't affect you if you're going to run or charge or anything like that, but for basic movement, it's pretty thematic. It's always on, doesn't require any special movements on your behalf in order to pull it off. With vehicles, even if they're stunned, they can still get that movement, which means you don't have to pay for extra armor. You're just going to get the effects of extra armor on a stunned vehicle, which is really good. So, yeah. Easy. The reaction as well. The reaction is really good. So their advanced reaction is Remorseless Advance, and when someone shoots at you, you just get Feel No Pain 4 up. On top of that, you automatically pass your morale and pinning if you're shot at, and once the shooting attack is resolved, you can move up to 7 inches. So you could move closer to the enemy to help you in your next turn, for example. Yeah. Really good. When you compare that to something like the Thousand Suns, where it's, you get a chance at an invul save, but you might lose some models. Holy crap, is that well done. So, moving on from there, we get to the Warlord traits, and all 3 are viable, which is crazy. So, Reaper's Visage, the Traitors only one, is any enemy unit within 12 inches of the Warlord is going to be at -2 leadership whenever they make a leadership check, morale check, attempt to regroup, any of that, unless they have an independent character or Primarch in their unit. That's most of the table, because remember, there's only going to be 3 independent characters on the board, and of course 4 if you include a Primarch in those games where one takes place, but those are big points games. In those situations, you're probably going to have Mortarion himself on the board, in which case this Warlord trait isn't going to matter. But yeah, really interesting to note how that one works. That's great, that's thematic. It's just a flat negative modifier to those things. It's going to make everything more effective. You get your Warlord in close to the enemy, your heavy weapons teams, which work really well in Death Guard, are going to synergize with that. Yeah, don't know what to say. That is just, it's just brilliant. Because when you combine that with Remorseless, again, that Legion trait, one of the big kickers of Remorseless is you don't count as moving when it comes to firing heavy weapons. You count as being stationary. You're not relentless, you can't fire rapid fire and then charge. But because you can move heavy weapons teams and fire them, if you get your Warlord trait near the enemy, you're going to be making them take leadership checks at leadership 5 on basic Marines. Brutal. Alright, second Warlord trait, Witch Hunter. Witch Hunter is +1 toughness and weapon skill to the Warlord when he's in combat with enemy psychers, and any Death Guard within 12 inches of him, don't have to be in his unit, just within 12 inches, get a 6-up invul save against any hits from a psychic weapon, psychic power, perils, any of that type of thing. Again, fantastic, because it's not just the Warlord affected, and it's not just his unit. Most of these Warlord traits fall into the trap of Warlord only and only his unit. No, this is just any Death Guard. So if you have a big combat going on in the middle of the table, which sometimes unfolds, everything is going to be at boost because of that. So Thousand Suns players are going to get wrecked by the Death Guard, because your buffs are way better than their buffs. Alright, not that 6+ invul save is the greatest thing in the world, but hey, if you didn't have an invul save, it's better than nothing, and it didn't cost you anything to get. Alright, the Blood of Barbarous, the third Warlord trait. Any hits with Rending, Murderous Strike, Poisoned, or Fleshbane that allocated to the Warlord with this trait, or any models with Death Guard rule in a unit he joins, only go off on a 6-up. really good. There's a lot of rending, breaching, that kind of, well, breaching isn't effective, but there's a lot of rending, a lot of poison out there. that happens on 5-ups, poison 3-up, for example. Way less situational than the Salamanders -1 to dice rolls against 4 specific weapons. Because it's not tied to a weapon, or a weapon category in this case, it's tied to a special rule. And because those special rules are universal to so many different weapons, that's what works in your favour here. So really good, I quite like that. I think that all of the Warlord traits here are viable in some capacity. So moving on from that, we get to the Rites of War, and here we have the Reaping. So in the Reaping, your veteran squads may be taken as troops choices in a detachment using this Rite of War. Okay, fine. Legion heavy support squads are non-compulsory troops in it. Cool, because your Legion veteran squads aren't going to be scoring, I would still be taking something else there. But if you want to free up heavy support slots, it may be useful in this instance, and this one alone, to take heavy support squads as troops. It does have some benefits here. The third buff is you can take rad grenades on any character in the army for 10 points. Just do it. It's so good. Yeah, you won't need it on heavy support squads probably, but... Well, I'll give you an idea. Death Guard heavy support squad could be in a Land Raider or a Rhino, could have multi-melters. They move up, hop out the Rhino, fire those multi-melters if they never moved in the first place because they're Death Guard. And then someone goes to countercharge them and they find themselves at toughness -1. That's hilarious. Alright, limitations. When using this Rite of War, you can't run or make any reaction that allows a move except for their advanced reaction, the Remorseless advance. Well, a lot of your Legion buffs come from not running, so, okay, no loss there. And the other limitation is, you can't deep strike, subterranean assault, or flanking assault. Which, it's not that big a loss. This is a line up your troops across the table and just slowly advance forward like it's World War I type territory. Really good. Very few drawbacks. What drawbacks it has play into the playstyle anyway of this force. Second Rite of War is the Creeping Death. All models in a detachment with this Rite of War automatically pass any dangerous terrain test they're called upon to take. Doesn't sound very important to me, but the next line is, when you're in the deployment zone, you gain Shrouded 6+. That's army-wide, that's your vehicles even. So that's a damage mitigation roll on top of any cover saves you might have or armor saves you might have. Okay, gets better. All zones of area terrain on the battlefield, including jungles, woods, ruins, craters, etc., by name, count as dangerous terrain. So you could, in some instances, turn the entire table practically into dangerous terrain, wherever there's terrain, for your enemy, but not for you. Combine that with the fact that you're getting damage mitigation rolls for free, like you just gained the Raven Guard Legion trait. Shrouded, you just gained it. And you gained it army-wide. For the Raven Guard, it's on their basic infantry, but you gained it on everything. Wow, okay. In the detachment using this Rite of War, Grave Warden Terminators can be taken as non-compulsory troops. Probably not gonna do that, but it's good to have the option. And the drawbacks, the drawbacks are just so bad. Can't be used by loyalists. Oh, okay. And you must take a Siegebreaker. Siegebreaker is still one of the better consoles. You can give Sunder to a unit within 6 inches of the Siegebreaker. Sunder is essentially extra armor penetration dice. Okay? Really good for las cannons, missile launchers, that kind of thing. And then, of course, you combine that with the fact that he can give Phosphex shells to, say, Aquator Bombard. Now, Phosphex rounds on Rapiers and Bombards are really rare these days. Siegebreakers used to be able to give Phosphex shells to Medusas and all sorts of things in Heresy 1.0, but as we all know, you're not allowed to have nice things in 2.0 when it comes to templates. So, what they've done here is they're still allowing you to do it, but it's very specific, the units that can take Phosphex now. And the Siegebreaker Phosphex on the Aquator actually gives you one of the only AP2 templates in the game. Yes, it's a small blast, but hey, it's something. It's something that can actually hurt Terminators, and that is so rare at the moment, it's not funny. So I've got to rate it just on that. Like, taking him, as well as that Sundering ability, that's really good. They're both Rites of War are viable. Neither of them is overpowered. They both just accentuate the Death Guard playstyle. And when rules are written like this, where everything is like, hey, not overpowered, perfectly viable, that's why these guys are, one, really quick to run through as a Legion, and two, their playstyle on the tabletop is really simple. It makes them one of the best Legions because of that. They're actually my third rated Legion, because it's balanced and it's simple. You know what you're doing. Move forward 6 inches with any unit in your army, and it's going to be as if they never moved for the purposes of shooting. Really good. Okay, the only one that's going to be affected by that is going to be your cavalry, which are usually relentless, and your artillery, which you aren't going to move. So neither of them is a problem, right? And you're going to ignore all those movement penalties and modifiers and such. Cool. Lots of the army has ignoring difficult, dangerous terrain, thanks to either, creeping death or whatever you might want to take. So that's really good. Your negative modifiers are things like, oh, you must take a console that really suits your army playstyle. It's like, okay, if I must. And, oh, you can't take stuff that deep strikes and goes against the basic movement tenets of your Legion traits. Like, oh, okay. So, yeah, none of this is bad. Alright, moving on to the Wargear now. So, Alchem munitions. Essentially, they're flamers, as per the previous edition. They gain Fleshbane and gets hot. So, where these will really come in handy, it actually makes Death Guard terrifying to, funny enough, Dreadnoughts. Because one of the things that saves Dreadnoughts in this edition is the fact that they are high toughness. It's not, you can't wound them. You can, they've got 2 up armor saves. But if you throw enough hits at them, you will bring them down. And Alchem munitions allow you to throw a lot of hits out with Fleshbane on those Dreadnoughts. Kind of handy. Fleshbane is going to be really good against anything that's high toughness, really. Monstrous creature type things, etc., across the game. They've definitely got their place. Are they as good as the last edition? No. But they've got their place. Toxin bombs. Now, toxin bombs are a funny one. So, they're kind of like defensive grenades. Whenever the enemy charges at you, you roll a dice for every model in the charging unit. On a 1, they take a wound. They don't get an armor save, they don't get a cover save, they don't get a feel no pain, but they can take an invul save. Good little way to thin out some units, actually. If you combine that with rad grenades, it can make charging to the Death Guard a really dangerous prospect. Because they might lose a model on the charge in, might lose a model to Overwatch, and then might lose more models in the actual combat. They'll be fighting an uphill. So really good, really good. And Death Shroud power sides, I guess they're just called power sides now. But strength +2, so strength 6 on most models. AP 3, killing power armor but not killing Terminators. But there is a chance because they are rending 6+. They are reaping blow as well. So if you're in combat with multiple models touching yours, you get an additional attack. So potential is there to throw out enough attacks with rending that you'll get through Terminators, but that is not what the power side is for. The power side is to allow you at initiative on, say, single squad sergeants and that in a challenge against another tactical squad sergeant to cut him down easier. If he's got a 3-up armor save, fine, you'll kill him. If he has a 2-up armor save, there's a chance you'll get through and kill him. Or you throw your sergeant into a tactical squad on the other side and he just kills 3 or 4 Space Marines on the charge and wins you the combat single-handedly. Now, ignoring special characters as we do, and the Primarch, we go into the special units, and both of them are good. Now, Death Shroud Terminators, they're a tough one because weapon skill 5, ballistic skill 5, The ballistic skill 5 is a funny thing because they have Alchem pistols, and Alchem pistols, they're template weapons. Ballistic skill doesn't matter. So it's an odd choice. I don't know why ballistic skill 5, it could have been factored into the points, it's a strange one. But weapon skill 5 is solid. Attacks 3 is solid. It's the 3 wounds. Tartarus Terminators with 3 wounds mean that even though you're 70 points a model, these guys are hard to kill. You are fighting against the Death Guard. One of the most terrifying things they can do is drop a couple of these into your deployment zone somehow, whether it's using vehicles or, put them in a flyer, whatever it might be. When the Death Shroud get into your deployment zone, they become the ultimate denial unit, because you need to put something like other Terminators against them to kill them. If you shoot at them, you need strength 9 or above to kill them, because they are battle hardened 1. So essentially -1 on the attacks of instant death type weapons. So you can't just turn around and hit them with melter guns. You can't hit them with missiles, like crack missiles, for example. You need to be hitting them with power fists or thunder hammers if you want to bring these guys down. That makes them really, really good. Because of those Alchem pistols that they've got, they can hose down people on objectives. Just 2 Death Shroud can put out an ungodly amount of hits on a squad that is holding an objective before charging them with the scythes. With 3 attacks base, even 2 of them for 140 points are going to be outnumbered most of the time, but they're going to be hitting you with 8 attacks. 10 if they charged, from 2 models. They're going to hit most units on 3s, they're only going to get hit on 5s themselves. They're going to wound on 2s, they're doing it at initiative, and anything that doesn't have a 2+ armor save is going to get killed. I think they're really, really underrated for this fact. They're also all chosen warriors, so they can all take and accept challenges. And again, you're happy to challenge a squad sergeant, a tactical squad who's got a power fist with these guys, because you're not going to lose your Death Guard model to that sergeant. He's going to die in the challenge. It's just a question of when. They're also stubborn, so they're never losing that leadership 9. There's just so much to like here. And another good thing about them, people haven't really taken note of, is they can take melter bombs. So you take 2 of these guys, put 2 melter bombs on them, you've paid 150 points. You've got 6 wounds out of it. You've got an ungodly amount of attacks out of it, and they can take down tanks and vehicles. So even 2 of them, at that cheaper points, is the same price as a 10-man tactical squad. Well, actually, a bit more. It's more like a 14-man tactical squad. But cheap enough that in someone's back line, they need to be dealt with. You can't just ignore them, and that's really good. And being Tartarus, they can do things like run, depending on what rite of war you take. They can also be taken as a retinue, which again, if someone is crazy enough to take a full retinue of 10 of these guys, could happen. 700 point unit, but you're going to have a hard time killing them if you don't have las cannons, because 10 of them is 30 wounds with 2 up armor saves. Attach an apothecary to that, and it's just ungodly levels of survivability. And again, you don't want to get charged by it, because they're going to throw out so many attacks. 10 of them has the potential to throw out 50 attacks. That's World Eater levels of carnage. So, the second unit is the Grave Warden Terminators. Grave Warden Terminators, 250 points, 45 points per model. So, cheaper. Only weapon skill 4, only ballistic skill 4, only 2 attacks each, but come with power fists, so they can instant kill other Terminators. So, just power fists alone on a regular Terminator in counterfractal armor, take a regular Terminator to the price of these guys. These guys have Shrouded built in. They have the Shrouded in Death special rule. They have firing protocols too, so they can fire 2 weapons at you. We'll get back to that. On top of that, they also have their main shooting weapon, the Assault Grenade Launcher, which is way better than a Combi Bolter. So, points-wise, they are incredibly efficient compared to a regular Cataphracti Terminator. The only downside is they're a heavy support choice. Now, upgrades, you can upgrade to a full 10, sure. You can give them Chain Fists, 5 points a model. Might be worth 1 or 2. They can take an Alchem Heavy Flamer. Probably don't need it, to be honest. They can also take Combi Bolters or Magna or Minor Combi Weapons. You won't. You just don't need it. Don't worry about it. And you can exchange the Chem Master's Power Fist for a Power Scythe. Again, you probably don't need to. If anything, it's a downgrade. And you may take a Grenade Harness on the Boss Man. Now, Shroud in Death special rule. anyone who charges you counts as disordered, so that means no bonuses for charging. That's important. Bonus attacks. The Assault Grenade Launcher. Remember how I said they have the ability to shoot 2 weapons at once because they have that firing protocols too? Well, they have an Assault Grenade Launcher and what they call a Death Cloud Projector. So the Assault Grenade Launcher has crack and toxin rounds, 18 inches range. The crack rounds, strength 6, AP 4, assault 2. Going to be viable against any kind of marine, solar auxilia, even light vehicles. The toxin rounds, only strength 1, only AP 5, but 4 shots each, poisoned 3+, and ignores cover. Okay, ignores cover on AP 5 isn't that crash hot, but poison 3, you do the maths. 5 of these guys is going to put out 20 shots that are going to wound contemptors easily. They're dangerous to one of the hardest units in the game, just because of that fact. They also have the Death Cloud Projector. It's a template weapon, strength 1, AP 4, assault 1, poison 3+. Not that great, but if you combine the ability to fire assault grenades and a death cloud together at once on a unit when you get close, they can put out just so much firepower. I really like them. I don't think you need more than 1 unit in an army of Death Guard, but yeah, they are a really solid choice. They're not overpowered. They need to be played smart. You need to get them into situations where they can pull off these attacks. And being Cataphracti, they're slow. It's going to be hard to get them there because they're not running, and even if they wanted to, they can't because of the armor, and Death Guard don't really want them to run, the way the rules are written. But if you can get them there, or you're defending the backline against someone's unit, like someone deep strikes in, for example, with a squad of Assault Marines next to these guys, just pick up a dustpan, wipe the Assault Marines into the dustpan and take them off the table. Because they're going to take so many hits, even from 5 of these guys. There will be nothing left. 250 points for them is a bargain. Anyway, that's it for the Death Guard. There are other squads we could go into, such as the Mortis Poisoners, who I really like as well. But we won't go into that right now. We're going to save that for another time. Anyway, Death Guard overall. I'm going to say 3rd strongest Legion, because their playstyle is so simple. You don't have to do any big brain thinking here. It's put models on table, walk towards enemy, shoot everything as if you never moved, and then remove enemy models from play. It's really good. You can take augury scanners, for example, on your heavy weapon squads, and those heavy weapon squads are just going to walk around the table firing multi-melters and las cannons from the hip at everything that comes onto the board, which is hilarious. Putting, again, Death Shroud, pay for 2 squads of them. 2 squads of 2, 300 points with melter bombs, throw them into the enemy deployment zone, watch the enemy deal with them. Because they have to divert resources towards doing it. It's going to have to be good stuff. And because there's so few AP2 templates at all in the game anymore, people are going to have a hard time killing them. Because of that battle hardened, they need strength 9 weapons. That means las cannons. Las cannons are going to be key to killing Death Shroud. So obviously, in playstyle, avoid getting into situations where they can easily pepper your Death Shroud with las cannons. And if you do that, you will make back your 70 points per guy. But if you put them in the middle of the table, standing in the open, in front of a Spartan covered in las cannons, they're going to die. And you're going to go, no, it's not fair, they cost 70 points each. Don't do that. Don't get in that situation. But overall, okay Wargear. Definitely has its place if used in quantity. None of their Wargear is good in isolation. Good Legion traits. Rights of War and Warlord traits which play into their Legion traits and into their Legion rules and into one another. Perfect. Exactly what you want. If all Legions were written like this, the game would be better for it. Anyway, that's all from me, Mac with the Outer Circle. Next episode is going to be on the Ultramarines, and I hope to see you all there.